Hello YouTubers, this is Demon0981 again, and here to bring you a remake of the top Cartoon Network villains. Now, Cartoon Network has provided us with shows that have included some very interesting and somewhat evil characters. There's a lot of us what I know about mostly, such as, I don't know, Father from Codename Kids Next Door, or the Rowdy Rough Boys from the Powerpuff Girls, Aku from Samurai Jack, and Scarlet from the last Total Drama Island series. But what about the other bad guys? Well, this is going to be a remake of the top 10 and Cartoon Network villains. Now, keep in mind, I'm only going over animated villains. I'm not going over or seeing real shows. Those like Level Up. I think I was the only one in the villain. No, like reanimated. So let's not waste any more time. Let's go on into the villains, shall we? Number 10, Miss Endive from Chowder. Now, Chowder has been a very big kind of a cartoon show for me, mostly because it ties into a lot of things that I kind of like about it. The characters, the recipes, the artwork, the voice acting, even some of the stories. But there's one character I do count as a villain. Mostly because she basically ends up causing the most trouble for Mom Doll Company. That would be Miss Endive. Now, we've all seen a character like this. Someone who thinks they're oh so perfect, acting better than their rival. Now, let's see, what other character do I know about that has this sort of trait? Trixie from MLP? Now, there are a few episodes I can mention about Miss Endive. If mostly being the episodes, the one where there's a food flea market, and there's the grapple episode where Panini is trying and get Chowder to be her boyfriend after a little misunderstanding that Gazpacho made. But there is one episode I definitely count her as a villain. That's the Mood Fruit episode. Mom and Chowder are going after this necklace of mood fruit, which, like a mood ring, changes color depending on the mood of the wearer. Knowing Endive, the colors become darker and darker until they turn black. And by cheating, i.e. using her fat butt had to send Mum Doll flying away. She gets a hold of the mood fruit, and in order for Mum to get this fruit from her, he has to do some very degrading things. First, she tries to make him act like a dog by begging, and then she tried, and when that doesn't work, all she does is just simply crush one of the fruits. So, Mom and Chowder have to go through all these nearly impossible tasks, such as cleaning a pit of bacon grease, which Chowder actually manages to do. Take care of these humongous bugs in her pool, peel a sack of grilled potatoes. Oh, did I forget to mention that I also like the clever wordplay the different foods in this universe have? Not only the characters having names similar to certain foods, but also the very foods within the episode. Grilled potatoes are basically potatoes that once you start peeling them, they start growing. And, excuse me a minute. Anyway, once you start peeling a grilled potato, you have to keep peeling it completely. Otherwise, it'll just keep growing bigger and bigger. And so, after all this is done, and Chowder and Mom succeed, what does Zendaya have to do with the mood fruit? Does she give it to them? Hell no, she stomps on them. And the whole process starts all over again. Now on to number 9, which is every villain from Codename Kids Next Door. Yes, I said every villain. The Delightful Children from Down the Lane, the Ice Cream Men, Mr. Big, Father, Mr. Fizz, Toylinator, the Crazy Cat Lady, Mr. Wink and Mr. Fib, Count Spankula, the whole bunch. Mostly because, well, these are just basically adults us trying to fight a bunch of kids who just want to have things their way. Which brings me to a very interesting question. There are some theories within the show about how exactly this whole universe thing works. Did the kids create the adults? Or was there something completely different? Anyway, the first adult to revolt against the kids was supposedly Father. This doesn't make any sense though, seeing as in Operation Zero, number one's father and, well, his uncle father, there are kids at the time, and the whole world's ruled by grandfather. So I'm still a little iffy on that. But as far as some of the villains go, it goes pretty well. In fact, the show makes a lot of references to different forms of media. I mean, there was a parody episode that acted like Lord of the Rings with the Crazy Cat Lady, it being the orc leader, or number 4 acting like Gollum. There was a Jurassic Park based episode where school bullies are dinosaurs, And the whole thing is run by this kid who just wants revenge. Agent number 4 for giving him a wedgie. And not just any wedgie, apparently one that was so damaging that the doctors couldn't remove his underpants. Yeah, just thinking about that makes me hurt below the waist. It's surprised this kid didn't have a chipmunk voice. At least the entire time. But among my favorite villains in Codename Kids Next Door, other than Father, like I said before, is voiced by a Maurice LaMarche, who can do a very good yelling voice. My favorite villain has to be Captain Stickybeard. Mostly because he's voiced by Mark Hamill. And because, well, his name and is kind of a play parody on, well, Blackbeard. But while Blackbeard frightened his enemies, things with the lit fuses under his hat and in his beard, Stickybeard basically has a bunch of random candies stuck in his beard, as well as a peppermint cane hook and peg leg. There are some things about the series I find kind of odd, mostly being in the fact that it is basically a interesting show, if you want to put it that way. And interesting villains, good characters, and like the hardcore kid said, may have a little bit of stereotyping in it, but what are they do? Number 8, Mandark from Dexter's Laboratory. Again, another rival for the title character. Or for someone who's just as good as them, or even better. Dexter's Laboratory, and for those of us who don't know, is about a little kid named Dexter who was born a super genius and has built a secret laboratory within in his room. Mandark, on the other hand, almost kind of like him. Except, well, in the later seasons, it was revealed what his origin backstory was. His parents were basically a couple of hippies. Hippies who had the gall to name him Susan. And sorry to any guys out there that have feminine names. But Mandark proves to be a very opposing rival to Dexter, seeing as his laboratory is, well, bigger by comparison. In fact, I've noticed in one scene, behind his house, apart from the rocket launch station, some kind of tower, and basically there's some kind of round sphere-like object in the back. Could this be a Death Star? Anyway, in Mandark's first appearance, and it's pretty much the first day of school for Dexter. And he's having a pretty good day. Up until he gets to class, where the new kid starts showing him up by answering every question first and correctly, as well as kind of creeping him out by stating that he can read his thoughts. Question: if Mandark can read Dexter's thoughts, it's why didn't he do so in the first place? It's within the other episodes that he was in. And basically, and because someone dropped the ball that Dexter had in a secret laboratory, he shows it to Mandark, who doesn't seem to be very interested in it, until he shows Dexter his laboratory. And apparently there's a conundrum, or something like that. Seeing as there's two super geniuses as in town, there's obviously a big problem. If Dexter sides with Mandark, they could basically take over the entire their world with their intelligence. Or Dexter can basically shut down his entire lab, or else Mandark will blab his secret to everyone. Excuse me. Mandark, you already knew Dexter had a laboratory because some unknown kid told you. And now you're threatening to reveal his secret. And if he doesn't join you or shut down on his lab's power. Anyway, once Dexter does that, Mandark laughs his trademark maniacal laugh. And Dexter is miserable. That is until ODD comes along. May I mention that Mandark has a slight crush on Dee Dee? I'm sorry, dear, but you can do a lot better than Dee Dee. Yeah, while Dexter is pretty much smarter than Einstein, Dee Dee is about as smart as a bag of hammers. And I'm not talking about that episode where Dexter gave her a super brain. So basically, Dexter tricks Mandark, or just to get him back, by having Dee Dee follow a trail of candy to Mandark's house, and destroying his lab. Now, there have been other episodes that Mandark's been in, most notably the TV movie Ego Trip, where not only you get to see present-day Mandark, but all the future variations of Mandark. Even to the point where he's just a brain in a jar. And somewhat resembling Jabba the Hutt. Anyway, on to number 7. Which is Eddie's brother from Ed and Eddie. Yes, I know Eddie's brother only made one appearance, and that was in the end of the movie. But it counts. Now, another YouTuber whose videos I've watched mentioned this guy in his top most hated cartoon characters. And I agree. First of all, we don't even know his name. We just call him Eddie's brother. And basically, he's probably the main reason why Eddie is the way he is. Is a greedy con artist. Basically, this guy is supposed to be a jack of all trades, and a whiz in pretty much everything. And we built up so much information on this guy that when the TV movie was actually announced, for one, I was really excited for it. Said, oh, finally, we get to see this guy. Hey, at least we get to see a character who might not be an adult, but he's close enough. And there's a problem. When they finally get to Eddie's brother, there's place, which is in an amusement park. Turns out he's an asshole. Oh, he still picks on his little brother, and to make things worse, he kind of abuses him a bit. By twisting his leg in order to get him to say uncle. I'm sorry, I'm an older brother myself, but I don't do that to my siblings. Nor do I give them incredibly bad advice. And Eddie even fesses up to it too. Which is why I still think Eddie's brother is a villain. I know some people will count the Canker sisters, or even Kevin, for being a villain and in the series, but let's just be honest. Kevin at least has a right to be a somewhat of a jerk towards the Eds. The Canker sisters got me there. Now, number 6 is going to confuse a whole lot of people. Mostly because, well, even though I mentioned Scarlet and Max in the other animated villains list, this guy tops them all because he's the reason why these two little characters had to do what they did. And that would be Chris McLean. Or how it's written on paper, Chris McLean. Now, for all of us who have seen the Total Drama series, we know pretty much that's who Chris is and what he's done. Chris has basically played the TV show host to a degree where even the contestants hate him. In fact, it wasn't until the latest series that the contestants actually tried to get back at him. I mean, let's face it, he puts campers in an environment where there's incredibly dangerous animals, toxic waste, is incredibly bad food, which isn't even food, makes them do horrible things on TV, for his amusement mostly. And in every episode, he has this shit-eating grin. And whenever someone gets eliminated, and I have to side with some of the former contestants. Chris is definitely a big villain in the series, although some people would say Jeff is, because he helps Chris. But that's enough of that. Let's get on to number 5. Another confusing one. This one being Mandy from The Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy. Now, again, what can I say about this character? Or that most people haven't already said, and within the TV series itself. Mandy is sort of like a goth kid, but doesn't wear goth attire. In other words, she's Raven, but more dark. In fact, she's basically the reason why Grim is stuck with her and Billy for all eternity. For those of us who don't remember the pilot episode, Meet the Reaper, Billy and Indy are somewhat celebrating the 7th birthday of Mr. Snuggles, which is Billy's hamster. Now, if I know my biology, like my zoology facts quite right, it means I want to say a guinea pig. 7 is a very old age. In fact, the guinea pig I had, lived to be about 8 years old. But anyway, Mr. Snuggles, Billy, and Mandy are visited by none other than death itself, or himself. Oh, however, they don't want to give up the hamster quite yet, as, well, Mandy sees Grim as somewhat of an interesting adversary. And they come up with a deal. If they can beat Grim in a game, he will be their best friend for all eternity. However, if Grim were to win, not only will he get the hamster's soul, which he was there to do in the first place, he would also get Billy and Mandy's souls, almost in a game of limbo. Billy and Mandy cheat, or I should say Mandy cheats, by using Mr. Snuggles' trigger words. Or it's to have him basically jump into Grim's skull. And cause him to trip over the limbo stick, and thus making him lose the game. Now, there is one other thing I want to say about Mandy, and that is, well, I've not mentioned this for quite a while, but I'm still going to mention it. In snafucomics.com, there's a web comic series called Grim Tales from Below. It's like the ultimate crossover of Cartoon Network shows. It's both past and present, as well as other forms of media such as The Nightmare Before Christmas, Spawn, pretty much just that. Mandy is, well, in this series, is not only married to the Grim Reaper, who would have thought, but is also the queen of the underworld, or at least in Grim's realm of the underworld. And yeah, there are quite a lot of variations of the underworld in the Grim Tales series. In fact, I think there's been like as many areas as there are rings of hell. And trust me, the other villains I'm going to mention on this list, some of them are in the series itself. Number 4, Aku from Samurai Jack. Now, I can only see this series as an Adult Swim on Saturday or Sunday mornings, but it would be worth it. Aku, for those of us who don't know, is a demon sorcerer, or has the ability to shapeshift into various forms, such as, well, turning himself into animals, a human-like being, as well as not only changing into a full-on human, but also changing gender. On one episode, where he kind of tricks Jack into letting him get a hold of this gem, which would send Jack back to the past in order to defeat him. Now, I have seen in Samurai Jack at up to episode 20. It's not that I got bored with it or anything, and it's just that I had some stuff I needed to deal with. Aku basically sent Jack to the future, or as a last resort, because the samurai had a sword that was forged by the gods. Which was the only weapon that could defeat him. How about that? A weapon that can only defeat Aku. Oh, and it's just a sword. Well, then again, let's have this, and the Tenseiga and the Tokijin. I guess it fits. But anyway, in the distant future, like about 3,000 years, as Aku reigns supreme, and in his rule, chaos has ensued. I don't know about you, but Aku seems to have a real interest in using robotics. It's in order to rule the world. In fact, he tricked a scientist into making these assassin basket ship robots. That's in order to basically destroy Jack. But there's one thing I want to mention about him before I move on to the other 3 entries. Remember what I said in number 5? Aku is also in Grim Tales from Below. As one of the supporting villains. And in the series, he has a daughter named Chi, who is just about as bad as he is. Now, let's go on to number 3. Which is actually a tie in between Hudson Abadir, Marceline's father, the Ice King, yeah, I'm counting him in this, and the Lich. Now, what can I say about these villains that I haven't thought about already? Well, let's start with Hudson Abadir. According to the Adventure Time series, Hudson is Marceline's father, and he's either supposed to be a vampire or he's supposed to be a demon. I can't really tell what he is because, well, from his first appearance, he looks like a vampire. Because he has the pointy ears, the 2 fangs sticking out. He's got red, slit-like pupils and yellow eyes. He has kind of a widow's peak style hairdo, and he's dressed in a suit. Okay. But there's something completely different or scary about him. When he opens his mouth, or when he yawns really big, you can tell he's not exactly a vampire anymore. Seeing as he's a demon, or something like that, who basically feeds on the souls of various beings. Now, well, in his first appearance, it's Marceline and Finn are basically singing this little song and about how he stole all Marceline's fries when she was a little kid. And unfortunately, somehow Finn summons him so that there can be some closure between father and daughter. But instead of just talking things out, Marceline just basically sends him away and goes out after the souls of everyone in an ooh. Oh, as soon as things get somewhat back to normal, Finn kind of ruins everything by sending him back. And it's not until we get to the parts or episodes or Escape from the Niosphere and Daddy's Little Monster, where it's revealed that the suit that Hudson happens to be wearing is actually the result of the necklace that he has around his neck. This necklace is supposed to have basically a dark, evil energy in it that allows him to basically become the demon and he's known to be. And he tricks Marceline into wearing it, whereas she becomes the new demon version of Hudson Abadir. At the end of Daddy's Little Monster, Finn removes the necklace in order to save Marceline and Jake from the other demons of the Niosphere, which is a realm in hell. Oh, in the Grim Tales series. And when Finn puts on this necklace, I've said this before, but he ends up becoming somewhat like the Slender Man. And you know what? Screw it, I'm going to say it again. Finn becomes Slender Man. And after putting on the necklace. As, even though Slender Man doesn't really have a mouth, or a visible mouth, Finn does become something kind of like old Slender Man in himself. Let's see, what else is there I can mention about Hudson? And before I move on to the other two. Not much. Anyway, let's go on to the next villain, shall we? Which is the Ice King. And I do technically count the Ice King as a villain, seeing as, well, in the first two seasons, he's been shown on as kind of the traditional bad guy archetype. But as the series progresses, as we start to feel more sorry for the Ice King, or as he was once known as Simon Petrikov. Now, for those of us out there who have actually followed Adventure Time since season 1 to now, well, Simon was actually once a very bright and intelligent scientist. That is, until he discovered this crown. That, although it gave him somewhat immortality, it started to sap away at his mentality, causing him to go a little insane, as well as turning his skin icy blue, making his nose longer, and having him form a beard, or the longer he had the crown. Because of this, his fiancee Betty, he walked out on him, and he's been alone ever since. Well, since after the Mushroom Wars, as it's been hinted since Simon and Marcy. Speaking of which, Simon and Marcy was a pretty touching episode, as it told the backstory between Simon and Marceline when they first met. Now, there is one other thing about the Ice King that I do feel sorry for. And it's in the episode I Remember You. And the song I Remember You. Because Simon has been the Ice King so long, he's forgotten his past. The only one who remembers who he is, or once was, is Marceline, and there's barely anything she can do to help him. And as it turns out, there's an episode where, because this one dark, evil force is basically nullifying all wizard magic, so the Ice King reverts back to Simon, just long enough to summon Betty to present time, and to help him stop this evil force. Or else he would die. But, I'll find something interesting about the Ice King and how comedically evil he is. And speaking of evil, I mentioned this guy before in my top scariest animated monsters list. But for the sake of this list, I'm going to mention him again. That being the Lich, voiced by Ron Perlman, although sometimes it doesn't really sound like it's him at first, until he laughs. The Lich is a necromancer, or of sorts. Basically someone who has control of the dead and can kill anything around them, as proven in his first appearance. And it was either Mortal Recoil or Mortal something. And where Finn and Jake had to stop at the Lich King and from reclaiming his power source. They succeed, but something happens. And it's Princess Bubblegum, in which she becomes possessed by the Lich. And yada yada yada, some weird stuff happens. The Lich is gone for good, except he's in the form of that little snail. Oh, that released him in the first place. Now, cut to the episode of The Lich, which was part of a three-part episode where we were introduced to Prisma. Oh, and this alternate dimension in our universe, where if it were to happen, the Lich could have wiped out all existence. Interesting. But I'm not going to spoil anything except for this. Jake changes the Lich's wish to send Finn and Jake back home to Ooh, thus imprisoning him in Prismo's dimension basically for all eternity. That is, until we get to the episodes where Finn meets his father. And Meanwhile, in the beginning of the episode, everybody's having fun at Prismo's. Oh, and Jake does actually point out something really interesting, and such as Prismo. Oh, what about the Lich? He's still kind of here. Or why isn't he killing everyone? And Prismo just shrugs this off by saying, "Oh, he can't do anything as long as he's stuck here. He can't really do anything. He's basically in a comatose state. That is until Finn and Jake do something." When they find out that Finn's father is at this place called the Citadel, which is basically an intergalactic prison, or interdimensional prison, and then the only way that they can get there is by doing something incredibly bad. And Prismo sends them to get this old man who's been sleeping for a very long time. And they have to bring him back after Prismo without waking him up. But the weird thing is about that, and it gets even weirder still, they bring the old man to Prismo's cube house thing, and Prismo tells them to wake him up. Because the old man, as it turned out, was actually Prismo. And I know what a lot of us were probably thinking, and when we found that out, Prismo probably should not have said that because the Lich is right over there. And, think about what happens. The Lich happens to wake up old man Prismo, which basically vaporizes the immortal being. And before Finn and Jake can put the old guy back to sleep, the Lich kills him, thus summoning the Citadel Guardians, crystallizing the Lich, and bringing him to the Citadel. Unfortunately, this doesn't end there. And the second half of the episode, or second part, at the Citadel, the Lich's evil still seeps out, even though he's in this crystal prison. To the point where he turns into a skeleton. Well, he was a skeleton at first, and possessed Billy's body. But still, he turned back into a whole skeleton, and which apparently is where he was strongest. And how does Finn and Jake defeat this all-powerful old monster slash villain? By throwing the Citadel Guardian's regenerative goo on him, which reanimates him back to his most weakest state, which happens to be a baby. A lot of us are probably thinking the same thing. Worst climax ever. I mean, the first time Finn defeated the Lich was pretty epic, by literally tearing off his skull, by forcing that sweater through his eye sockets and pull it until his head came off. But turning him into a baby? Okay, I get it. He's not powerful at all in the baby state, but he is still a baby. Anyway, number 2, Slade or Deathstroke from Teen Titans. See what I did there? I said the name of one villain that actually had 2 different names. I know in Beware the Batman, he's known as Deathstroke, but in Teen Titans, he's known as Slade. And for those of us who have seen Death Battle, the episode where our Slade went up against Deadpool, one I was actually kind of interested and to learn a lot about this guy. And 2, there's one thing that kind of scares me about Slade, especially in that haunted episode of Teen Titans. If he had that Prometheum armor, he could have regenerated back to normal. Well, and he would still technically be alive. I still don't quite get it. But in the original Teen Titans series, he is basically the main villain. And after his first appearance. And it's really easy to see why. Now, before I go on to number 1, I want to make an honorable mention. And this guy comes from the same show as the number 1 spot. For my honorable mention, it's Mojo Jojo from the Powerpuff Girls. Now, we all know who this guy is. He's supposed to be a super intelligent monkey who kind of rambles on in his speech, his pattern and dialogue. And is supposed to be the evil genius of Townsville, and is technically the creator of the Powerpuff Girls. Even though Professor Utonium got like 99% of the credit. That didn't work for Mojo of pushing Professor and crashing into that vial of chemical X. The Powerpuff Girls would have been normal. I especially like what happens in the movie. I don't care what a lot of people say, I like the movie. Especially because Mojo Jojo does more evil deeds in the movie than in the TV series. Mostly because he's aiding in the use of other primates, such as an orangutan, gibbons, squirrel monkeys, gorillas, baboons, Japanese macaques. What else is there really used? I don't think of anything else. But anyway, he's been easily defeated by the Powerpuff Girls to the point where they smash that helmet on his head and you can see his brain. Now, on to number 1. This guy comes from the same Cartoon Network series as Mojo. He's in Grim Tales from Down Below, and he's one of the most controversial and most disturbingly scary villains in the entire series. That, my viewers, is him. Or, as the acronym states, His Infernal Majesty. Basically, this guy's the Cartoon Network equivalent of the devil. Not the Charlie Adler voiced red guy, but him. I don't know how I'm gonna if I'm going to describe them without finding myself laughing. Okay, picture Dr. Frankenfurter dressed in a Santa Claus suit with mechanical claws where his hands should be, and talking in a unison female / male voice. He's and being completely red and black. That would be him. Let's see, there's been a couple episodes where he's made an appearance that really affected a lot of viewers. First one being Tough Love, which is his first appearance, and Speed Demon, where he basically took over the world after the Powerpuff Girls were gone for 50 years. And turned into an even more intimidating version of himself. Now, the reason why I put him so far at the top is because, like I said, he's the Cartoon Network equivalent of the devil. There is no actual name for him other than him. Even the creators of the show, Greg McCracken and Gary Tarkovsky and even Lauren Faust, have no idea what to actually call this villain. Although in the Grim Tales from Down Below, e-comic, this is the last time I'm mentioning it, Hudson Abadir actually calls him by the name Kari, which I guess is supposed to be a Japanese word meaning devil. In fact, let me look that up real quick. And in the e-comic series, he is a main villain. Mostly because, well, I don't want to give away too much, but he not only kills one of the Powerpuff Girls, Blossom, but also Hosto Gatto, Raven, Erwin, most of Townsville, and has done pretty much the unthinkable. Oh, to his stepdaughter, Mimi. According to the e-comic, he chopped off her hands and replaced them with those claws and turned her into a demon. Like the Ice King, I feel sorry for Mimi because of her backstory. Right? And it is kind of heartbreaking in a way. And the devil basically kills your mother, destroys an entire city, annihilates your friends, and transforms you into basically a monster. Anyway, this is Demon0981. I'm signing out. And to tell you what, please like, subscribe, and leave comments on my videos. And maybe give me a suggestion on what you want me to go over next, such as movie reviews, TV reviews, video game reviews, that kind of stuff. However, I do have one little request, just of you all. Please do not request that I do anything My Little Pony related.